Keeping It Real with Tania and Nette. We're in our mini series, hashtag Words from Spirit. And today we are doing hashtag respect, which we've just briefly talked about before going, which just seems quite heavy, right? And neither of us are quite sure what we're going to be talking about, but this is the way Spirit runs.
Yeah, and for anybody that's just joining us, it's really interesting, this whole process. Like, we've been doing these 20-minute sort of short podcasts, but they are giving us the words and wanting us to talk about them. So we know that there's a purpose, but we don't really know what the purpose is or where it's all going to kind of fit in, because some of the topics are more about just like human interacting, as opposed to what you and I originally kind of thought we would be doing, which would be talking about spirituality, but they're talking about like really human interactions and values and stuff like that. But as soon as Nette and I sat down to do this, we both were sweating.
Yeah.
So we're like, okay, well, this is going to be interesting, because I got sweat marks. So something's coming out. So you go ahead and start. I've got a bit of an idea. I feel like as soon as I start talking, it's going to come.
And just so you know, with the sweating type of thing, I'm not a sweater, full stop. But when you do spiritual work, when the energy starts flowing and the stronger the energy that's coming in, your body just sweats. Like, it's just a way of, I don't know, too much energy inside. So it's quite interesting. So this is going to be interesting. But I am getting the gist of what it's telling me to start with. So let's go with that. What they're sort of saying, they're saying too much, but is respect at its core is I don't understand how to do that, but let's go with respecting yourself and your feelings and your emotions. So it's listening regarding, they're saying regarding, giving regard to yourself, to your feelings, to your emotions, and listening to those. And that is actually respecting yourself. So I think what they're trying to get us onto is actually being respectful of our own thoughts and our own feelings, respectful of other thoughts and other feelings of other people, respectful of opportunity, respectful of where we are. It's almost like they're wanting us to pause and be grateful in one way, because gratefulness is part of respect, but it's not respect in itself. That's why they're giving me a lot of words. They're giving me a lot of kind of pull into the one thing. And they're saying, I'm seeing, do you know when you get that little pause symbol? We talked last week about psychic symbols. Well, I'm getting that pause, and it's like you'd press to go play or you'd press pause. And they're saying being respectful needs sometimes to actually pause, to go, how do I feel? Well, let's respect this feeling within myself.
Yes.
So I'm feeling sadness. Therefore, I need to respect that feeling and not disregard it. I need to respect myself in that way. So listen to what my body is doing and give it the value that it deserves. All right, you need to go on, because I'm literally
so
confused.
Interestingly, it was like last week or the week before that they kept saying, to thine own self be true. And I believe, I might be misquoting this, but I believe this is actually a quote from Shakespeare. So what it says is, to thine own self be true. And I'm not getting the words right, I'm butchering it, because then you cannot be untrue to others, is essentially what it says. So a lot of people only know that to thine own self be true, which means, of course, always honoring yourself. If I forget, they want to talk about a gratitude practice, just remind me. But then what it says is, if you're always true to yourself, then you can't be untrue to other people. But if we're not respecting ourselves and respecting sort of where we're at and how we feel and what's happening for us, we can then not have that same level of respect for other people, because it didn't start within us, is what they're saying. And from the gratitude, what they said is that a lot of people have gratitude practices in the morning and the evening, and they want that to actually change into a respect practice, where instead of, as soon as you said gratitude, they're like, yeah, but, right? So they want it to become a practice of not necessarily, not that they're saying that being, well, they kind of are, There's not saying that a gratitude list is a bad thing, but they're almost saying that you're hitting on the wrong energy, because it's like you're trying to hit on like a manifestation energy, and they're wanting people to hit on a deeper core energy of within themselves to be able to say, okay, so I went for coffee with my friend Sarah, and when I went for coffee, she said some things to me that I didn't really agree with, or she talked about somebody else and I didn't agree with it. It didn't feel very good for me, but I sat there and I didn't say anything. So taking that time to do, they're calling it a respect, they're saying to thine own self be true, hashtag respect. So making sure that you're taking sort of that, give me the word, listing the times through the day where you respected yourself, because they just want people to be more conscious of it. Like the reason that we do gratitude is so that we have a positive outlook and we're grateful for the things in our life. But they want us to be looking at when we've honored ourselves, when we've respected ourselves, when we've done those things. And I mean, I can give a perfect example of respecting myself is recently, I've just kind of been having this feeling with like work and stuff where it's like, oh, I don't know if I could keep doing this, my cup's full. And the work that I do in child exploitation is very challenging. Like mentally, it's just plain very challenging. And I was like, okay, I think that it's time for me to leave this unit. But there was a lot of pride that for me came with doing this work. I have a lot of pride in it. I like doing the work. I like helping, but I also had to recognize and respect myself and honor that like it's just getting to be too much right now, because I have a busy life. I have a lot on my plate outside of sort of work. So it took me a good 3 days to kind of get myself to this place of being able to respect that.
Yeah.
And like put up the white flag and be like, I'm done. I can't keep doing this. And because I need to quit before I'm not okay. Like I'm still okay, but if I keep going, I'm not going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like I'm really teetering on not okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how I'm hearing it from them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the word that was coming up really strongly, and I was doing my very best to hold spirit back and not interrupt, was acknowledgement. And they were basically saying, yep, acknowledgement. So you need to acknowledge those feelings, acknowledge those things. And
Yes.
rather than being grateful, the path to being respectful is actually to acknowledge each of them and pause for a moment and say, okay, how am I feeling? How does that relate to my job? What can I do to change that? And know that those feelings, though, deserve the acknowledgement so that you can move forward. Like spirit is helping guide you by giving you those feelings and those emotions as well.
Yes.
So they want you to do it. And I love what you said about changing morning routines to being one of respect rather than gratitude. It makes sense because I was seeing gratitude and then they crossed it out and said respect. So I was like, they're saying gratitude, but they're saying respect. And I think that is it. Gratitude can be a consumerist thing. It can be saying, thank you for my beautiful house. Thank you for my this, thank you for that, which is great. But they're saying, hey, come on, let's go to the things that aren't tangible. Let's go to the emotions and the feelings and give the respect and give the acknowledgement to those, which means that you're starting to respect your senses. You're starting to respect your intuition. You're starting to respect your feelings. And you, in your case, great, like you took the moment to sit in it and say, okay, what is all this stuff coming up? You gave respect to yourself and listened to each of those things and said, okay, this is what I'm going to take the time that this is telling me to take. And then you can make a decision from there. Whereas we rush so much, like we don't do that.
100%. And that's very much what they're talking about. And it kind of relates back to the nervous system, I think, because the nervous system and our emotions and all of these things, we have these systems built inside of us to give us these messages. We
Yeah.
don't, I shouldn't have to go to you and be like, Nettie, I think that maybe I should change my job. Like, what do you think? What do you see happening for me? Right? You know what I had to do, and this is kind of sad, but I had to sit with myself and be like, okay, what's really under there? You know?
Yeah.
And it was anger, a lot of anger. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh wow, that is the emotion that I'm avoiding, is anger.
Yeah. They're
So I
saying
sat with,
too, they're saying
sorry,
compartmentalize your feelings, which is what you've done. You've pulled out of there.
compartmentalize.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. Either way. Yeah. And work out actually which bits are which, and which bits
Yes,
belong to work, and which bits belong to home, and which bits belong to this. And yeah.
exactly. Exactly. And so it was a lot of anger. And I was like, okay, I've definitely been avoiding looking at that.
Yeah.
You know, this is definitely an emotion that I've been numbing, right? And the reality of my job is that there is a level of compartmentalizing where you do numb and compartmentalize these things, which is good, but not when the big emotion that's coming up inside of you is anger,
Yeah.
right? So I sat with that, and then that kind of turned into anxiety. And then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Right. So it
Yeah.
was like, okay, when I start getting to that place just of like discomfort within myself, I am 100%, Renee always says, head down, arse up, like plow through, get her done. And I'm not going to do it this time. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't need to plow through. I don't need to make my life harder than it already is. Like, I need to be honoring myself. So, and you know what they keep showing me too is wisdom. They keep talking about, and here's a symbol from last week, is owls. They show me owls when there's wisdom, which, remember when the owl hit your window?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really interesting podcast. I'm scared to give messages ever again on this podcast, but anywho. um, I love that they're talking about the practice, because they're saying, oh, a wisdom respect, because we
Yeah.
have this wisdom. And I know I'm repeating myself, but it's kind of just coming in little chunks from them, is that we have that wisdom inside of ourselves, and we have to be paying attention to it and listening to it.
Yeah. And I think that's our hashtag homework, to actually stop when you start to feel a feeling and give the feeling the respect, like acknowledge it. Okay, what is this?
Thank you.
And then try and work out where that belongs. Like, where is this coming from? Is it lots of things? Is it one thing? Is it, and we often get into a kind of a place in our life where we know we're unhappy, but we're not quite sure where it is. And that's, I think, why they're bringing it up, because there's a lot of people that will be listening to this that have come to this one because they're at that point. And Spirit sort of guided them onto this one of respect. And it's saying, this is for you. This is for you to actually stop, honor, respect, acknowledge all those things, your feelings and emotions. And they show the nervous system as your intuitive and your nervous system physical, which is spoken about many times, overlapping. And that respect will help you, if you stop and acknowledge it and do that little routine each day, you'll start to see the nervous system, your feelings and emotions and all your senses will actually work together to give you the answer. And so, but if you don't pause and you don't acknowledge it, you're being disrespectful to yourself, is what they're saying. And you're not respecting that feeling or that emotion that has been brought up for you. And as you said, we can squash it for a little while, but eventually it's going to pop up. Yeah.
And they're going back to thine own self be true, because it's the, like you said, the nervous system, the way it aligns, that is how we reach alignment, is by being true to ourselves. And by being true to ourselves is to respect our experiences and let those emotions move through. I remember saying or reading somewhere, somebody said, I can't remember, but it was, the only thing that you really have to do with the emotions is feel them. That's it. That's the point of them. But you
Yeah.
have to acknowledge, you have to have that self-awareness to know that it's there. And that was a big one for me to be able to kind of sit down and go, okay, like what's happening here? Because we get so busy, we do not pay attention to sort of what's happening for us. And in the past, I would have just plowed through, but this time I was like, nope,
Yeah.
let's listen to this. Let's listen to this.
And then by doing that, you're trusting that spirit has something, there's a reason why spirit's pulled you up at this, and you can do it now, or you can do it in 5 years' time. If you were like, no, I'm plowing through, I'm not going to listen to that, I'm not going to respect those emotions for what they are, like pushing to the boundaries, going, hey, I'm here. You might have been able to plow through for 5 years, but your next part of your path wouldn't start till then, because spirit needs you to be at a certain point. So I think when big changes happen, 555 from last week,
Yeah.
if you're watching the symbols one,
but I have to say, I've been getting a ton of fives. I've been getting a lot of fives lately. I knew something was coming. I didn't know it was this, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's all of those things together. Like respect is almost like all the hashtags that we've done so far. It's like respecting our values, being true to those, respecting, the symbols and things that come through, giving them that acknowledgement at that moment. So respect is actually giving regard to the things that come up in your life, as a personal thing or to other people. So if you go back and look at the hashtags that we've done, I think you'll find that they all actually stem back to only working well if they're respected, if that makes sense. So
that is absolutely true. And what the phrase that they're bringing to me is, if you want to have self-esteem, you have to do esteemable things. But they're saying if you want to have self-respect, you have to do self-respectful things.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
And I think you're right. You absolutely right. Because just at the beginning of this podcast, I was like, I'm not really sure the damn purpose, but I think that's the purpose. Is these are all of the different steps and things that we can do to bring ourselves into alignment, which brings us into this place of respecting ourselves, diet, sleep, all of those things, because we get so removed from ourselves. We get removed from what we're feeling. We get removed from our own ability to make intuitive decisions. I've done all of this. We just get removed. We get caught up in, going to work, eating dinner, paying bills, going to sleep, and it's on repeat. And we don't ever stop to just go, whoa, hold on a second. Like, am I actually being true to myself here? So you're 100% right. All of the podcasts up to this one have been all about self-respect and alignment.
Yeah. And it's funny because we were kind of like, where's spirit leading us? Like just random words like that we're doing. And I think that's the difference in what spirit is trying to make sure we understand. I think that what you've just said really is that the words that you might have defined as being spiritual, you're missing a whole bunch that actually belong to that realignment and belong to that intuitiveness and belong to all of those things, because we've been conditioned, which we've talked about in the past too, to think that, the word respect doesn't really belong into spirituality. Like, what's that got to do with it? Or what's values? Yeah, they exist and they're really important, but not in spirituality. We should be talking about awakening and crystals
and contacting angels. Yes.
And they're saying, no. It's the core words. It's not that doesn't happen, but that should be like icing on a cake, not the core of your spirituality. Your spirituality should be everyday living. And they're trying to get you to go simple back to base. And like I'm seeing again, the pause, the two almost like equal lines, to say pause, and make sure that you're looking at what you're doing and taking the time to read all these symbols and all these senses and all these information that's coming through. You're missing so much. So if you're listening today, spirit is saying very clearly, there are things that you're missing. and stop and do it. And Tanya's just proven to us what happens when you actually do it, because she's our living example of everything.
Hooray. Hooray. The other thing that they're bringing it back to, Nettie, is the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They really like that hierarchy of needs, but they're referring to it in relation to the foundation. This is the foundation of spirituality, because if you're not being, and I'm just going to say true to yourself, if you're not being true to yourself, you're not a clear channel for connection. It's not about whether you eat meat or not. It's about actually having that foundational core. This is who I am. And this is what I'm about, that builds that foundation to then bring it up into the higher chakras. But this is the grounding. This is the base chakra. Woo. Look at that little connection that I just made.
I was kind of laughing at it because they were saying to me, this is your jeans and t-shirt and jumper. Like, it's not your jewelry, it's not your rings, it's not your high heels. This is just the core of the basics. Like, this is something in the black dress. It's the standard things in your wardrobe, you know. And if you don't have this and you just have heels and jewelry and one dress, and you walk out in the day in your all glamour and glitter, and you're like going to do the gardening, it's you can't function in that attire. So they're saying that what they're trying to give you is, yes, have the jewelry, have the glitz and glamour of spirituality, that's there to be had. But if you don't have the jeans, t-shirt and jumper, or whatever we call it in Canada, what's
a jumper is like a sweater,
a
right?
sweater, a sweater, like so if you don't have those core basic clothing, that core, you're just
living
not
in
going to be able
clouds.
to function. You just can't function in life. Like, you just can't walk around every day and do what you need to do.
You also can't expect yourself to be able to reach those higher frequencies, because if I can't tune into my own emotions, I am certainly not going to be understanding other people's energy. I'm not. Right? So with that said, we're at our TikTok time. I don't know why I like it when you say that. You said that before. Oh, we're at TikTok time. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cute. So we're at TikTok time. And the homework is pay attention, slow down, pay attention to what your feelings are trying to tell you. Make sure you're respecting yourself, and do a hashtag respect list, either in conjunction with or instead of your gratitude list. So thank you everybody for being here. It was lovely to see you guys all, and lovely to see you, Nettie.